Next on the Rockbridge Report, we take a look at the federal lawsuit filed against VMI. The suit alleges upper-class cadets used a torture technique on first-year cadets.
And then we'll take you to Buena Vista, where people there are talking about plans to move the library. We'll explain why. And the rain is falling on our plain for 2 days now. Avalon Purnell will show us when it should end.
And later in the newscast, we'll give you the story of a young boy doing his part to bring happiness to this community. That and more on the Rockbridge Report.
Live from the campus of Washington and Lee University with news from Rockbridge County, this is the Rockbridge Report.
Good evening, I'm Lily Mott.
And I'm Felicity Taylor. A former male cadet at the Virginia Military Institute has filed a federal lawsuit alleging that he was the victim of sexual assault and waterboarding. The lawsuit was filed last week in federal district court in Roanoke. Jackson Sharman is live at VMI with the latest. Jackson?
The lawsuit accuses 5 VMI upperclassmen of engaging in behavior that was tantamount to torture. It happened in January 2018 when the plaintiff in the lawsuit, identified as John Doe to protect his identity, was a first year. VMI calls first years rats. The first years must go through 7 months of harsh treatments by older cadets. VMI has a tradition of endorsing a boot camp-like initiation called the Rat Line. The lawsuit says 2 first years were ordered to show up at an older cadet's room. They were allegedly jumped by another cadet. The lawsuit says the first year's cadets' feet were bound with duct tape so they could not escape. The lawsuit says the upperclassmen told them they were prisoners and played the Islamic call to prayer. Both first-year cadets were then allegedly waterboarded. Towels were placed over their face and water was poured on the towels so they could not breathe. The lawsuit says the older cadets were mimicking interrogation techniques used by U.S. forces in Afghanistan, Guantanamo Bay, and the Abu Ghraib prison in Iraq. Waterboarding is a violation of the Geneva Conventions. A spokesman for VMI said the school does not believe it violated anyone's rights. He also said the school will fight the lawsuit vigorously in court.
President Donald Trump held a press conference today in response to the end of his impeachment trial.
I've done things wrong in my life, I will admit. Not purposely, but I've done things wrong. But this is what the end result is.
The Senate voted 52-48 to acquit Trump on both articles of impeachment Wednesday afternoon. Virginia's Democratic Senators Tim Kaine and Mark Warner both voted in favor of convicting Trump.
The Democratic nominees are looking past Iowa and gearing up for battle in New Hampshire this weekend. CNN hosted a town hall event in Manchester, New Hampshire yesterday, where 4 of the contenders took questions from local voters.
No one should be working in the United States of America 40 hours a week and living in poverty. And that's why we have to raise nationally the standard of $15 an hour for every worker in America.
You know who has already figured out that I'm his toughest matchup? Donald Trump. I am the only candidate in the field he has not tweeted a word about.
We can and should have a woman for president.
On Saturday, candidates will face off on the debate stage, and the candidates will continue to hold events throughout the week to rally support. The New Hampshire primary is next Tuesday.
Organizers of Washington and Lee's mock convention were counting on Iowa to thin the number of Democratic candidates and make it a little bit easier to predict the party's nominee for president. So far, that has not happened. Earlier this afternoon, I asked MockCon director Jimmy Fleck how his political team reacted to the chaos in Iowa.
It didn't go as we expected, and so it's leading us now to reevaluate some of our assumptions about the race. The biggest was Joe Biden's status as the front runner. Now, the former vice president was expected to continue to lead in the primary and caucus process, but after seeing him underperform in Iowa, we've been checking that assumption again.
Okay, so one of the state chairs for MockCon told us that the results are going to lead to a reevaluation of our national pick. What's that reevaluation going to look like?
So that really starts with the next few primary and caucus stops, being in New Hampshire, South Carolina, Nevada, and ultimately on Super Tuesday. Okay. So we're checking again what our predictions are in those states to see if the same scenario that we saw play out in Iowa could repeat itself in those next few contests.
Definitely. So Pete Buttigieg actually gained 9 points in the last 2 days that we were tracking. How does this change your predictions as we move into New Hampshire?
So Pete Buttigieg was one of our top 4 candidates going into the primary and caucus process. So seeing his strong performance in Iowa means we'll definitely continue to keep an eye on him going into New Hampshire, where he's also looking to put up another big number. But it'll be interesting to see whether or not he can sustain his success past these first initial states.
What about Joe Biden? How does he look going into the New Hampshire primary, and what are we thinking? Are we thinking of him as our pick anymore, or are we reevaluating Joe Biden?
So we're definitely re-examining our thoughts on Joe Biden. However, he is still a strong candidate. He is still working to build on the Obama coalition that led to success in 2008 and 2012. But looking towards New Hampshire, it'll be interesting to see how his path forward goes, considering that New Hampshire already has a strong base of support for Senator Bernie Sanders. We see Joe Biden's path forward centering more on South Carolina and the Super Tuesday states going forward.
MockCon kicks off Thursday with a VIP politics and media panel in Keller Theater at the Lenfest Center. The festivities also include a parade down Main Street and a complete political convention experience with big-name speakers, including talk show host Trevor Noah, former Al Gore campaign manager Donna Brazile, former U.S. Senator Joe Donnelly, and former Florida Democratic gubernatorial candidate Andrew Gillum.
The Wuhan coronavirus has affected more than 28,000 people worldwide and is still spreading. Americans coming from China are being quarantined at military bases across the U.S. to stop the spread of the virus in the States. While government officials are looking for ways to contain the spread, researchers are hard at work quickly to find answers. CNN's Nicole Gregg has the story.
Scientists inside TGen North taking us inside their Flagstaff lab. They're using supercomputers as their secret sauce to break the code of this new strain of coronavirus.
It's a computer, it's a camera.
The coronavirus is made up of letters, just like our DNA.
It's about 20,000 letters long.
And they have to know these letters to find the blueprint of the virus so they can create a test.
That genetic code tells us everything we need to know. It tells us all the secrets of that organism. It tells us, is it changing? It tells us what's going on. How is that virus able to get into human cells?
Right now, only the CDC can test for the newest strain of coronavirus from China. So scientists here and across the country working to crack the code. And when they do, they'll have a test that doctors and hospitals can use everywhere. Here's something you may not know. SARS and MERS, those are types of coronaviruses, and the labs here also worked to develop tests on those as well. But the big question is, when will they have a test ready and approved?
When it's an emergency like this, what they try to shorten that down is down to months and maybe even weeks in order to go through the approval process at the FDA.
The virus is still largely contained in China. However, it has spread to over 25 countries. 13 states in the U.S. have confirmed cases of the virus. The Lexington city government is working on a plan to improve the Jordan's Point Park. James Laverty takes us there.
The Lexington City Council has been working on a plan to renovate the Jordan's Point Dam Park ever since the State Department of Games and Inland Fisheries removed the dam earlier this year. Mayor Frank Friedman worries the city won't get enough input from its residents until it's too late.
People generally don't get involved in a project until a project's done, and then people critique everything that should have been done differently.
The park mainly consists of a soccer field and an old pavilion to hold events. The dam's removal lowered water levels near the park. That makes swimming and other water recreation safer. Lexington Planning Director Arnie Glazer said that change alone should attract people to the park.
We've seen people out there more often, fishing, hanging out on the rocks this summer, getting into the water. We really didn't have that, at least not as close to the dam at that point. So we're hoping that we'll have more folks getting into the water than we had before.
The city is working with Land Planning and Design Associates, a Virginia-based landscape and architecture planning firm, to come up with plans for the new park. The firm has presented options to City Council. Both options include easier pedestrian access to the river, fishing overlooks, and a new pavilion for gatherings. The plan also would upgrade the soccer fields and add parking. Lexington residents gave input to the City Council at their last meeting.
We needed more public input, more public comment on those two concepts, particularly from folks that aren't quote-unquote gray-haired.
The city wants to know what younger and middle-aged residents think.
LPDA is working with the local elementary and middle school in particular to ask children what they would love to see and engage them in their ideas.
The company is turning to experts, kids at Rockbridge County High School.
They're environmental classes that are actually familiar with the park and have done work or studies in the park, so they're familiar with it. So we're going to reach out to the high schools and particularly those two classes.
The final plan will likely include the most popular parts from each proposal.
Folks in the conversations with LPDA said we'd love to see this be a park for everyone.
The idea of the renovation is to blend the water and land features of the Jordan's Point Park to attract more residents. Mayor Frank Friedman expects the final proposal to be presented in the next 6 to 9 months.
Next on the Rockbridge Report, we'll tell you how the city of Buena Vista may upgrade the library by moving it.
Lexington has been seeing quite a bit of rain today, and it is now under a flood watch. Will this bad weather continue? Stay tuned for more.
And later in the newscast, we'll show you how a kid's dream to spread happiness became a reality.
In Buena Vista, plans are underway to move the public library to a new location as a part of the Go BV initiative. Sophie Kidd has the story.
The public library is an essential part of life for many people in Buena Vista. For some, it's the place where they can use computers and technology. It's also a space where homeschooled students can make new friends. Some adults use it as a quiet place to work, study, or fill out job applications. Earlier this month, Mayor Billy Fitzgerald said the city may have to reduce funding for the public library. Young children and their parents use the library more than anyone else.
I think it's a great way to, for especially families with young kids to come and learn together and play together and make friends and connections in the community.
Branch manager Elena Scovira has been working at the library for over 6 years. Since 1970, it's been housed on the first floor of the historic former courthouse.
Biggest question we get is, are you closing? Are you closing? The mayor doesn't want to fund you. Are you closing? And as far as we know, right now, we're not closing. We're staying here and doing what we need to do, and we'll see what happens.
Scovira says the current location has limitations.
Right now, this building is not sufficient enough for what we'd like to do for the city of Buena Vista. We don't have room to do programs. We don't have a separate programming room. We're the only branch that does not have a separate programming room, and we are the busiest, sorry, I shouldn't say biggest, we're the busiest small branch.
For the past 2 years, real estate developer Ed Walker and a team of Washington and Lee law students have been working with the Buena Vista community to revitalize the city's economy. Go BV owns a vacant building on Magnolia Avenue, down the street from the library. The group has proposed that the library move there. Last year, Walker said he would like to turn the building that currently houses the library into a boutique hotel.
Go BV has been working with Scovira and library patrons for over a year to create plans for the new library. The project is still awaiting approval from the city. Walker's group plans to reveal more details about the library at a community meeting this Saturday at 10 a.m. at 2076 Magnolia Avenue. For the Rockbridge Report, I'm Sophie Kidd.
So I lost my rain jacket earlier this week, and it has not been fun going from class to class.
Oh, Avalon, what do you think? Should she buy a new one?
Sadly, yes. The rain is going to let up for a couple of days, but it's definitely going to be back and soon. Right now, we are live on VMI's campus, and as you can tell, while it is not raining, it is still very dreary outside. Now let's take a look at our current conditions. Right now, our high is at 48 degrees and our low is at 45, although right now it feels a little bit more like 47 degrees. The barometric pressure is at 29.37 inches of mercury, which explains the fact that we had a pretty dreary and rainy day today. The wind speed is at 1 mile per hour and humidity is at 100%, which again makes sense given the rain that we've had today. Now let's look at the radar. Right now, as you can see, there is a massive precipitation system that is moving in from the southeast over Virginia into the north. So we can definitely expect more rain tonight and rain later on this week. Looking on at the places around us. Right now, most of us are standing in the mid to high 40s, although some like Stanton and Buena Vista are in the 50s, although most of us, again, are seeing a lot of rain. Now, looking at our forecast for the week, tomorrow we can expect 48 degrees to be our high with a low going down to 29 degrees. That should probably stay around the same on Saturday, but thankfully we are going to see some warmer weather on Sunday with a cloudy day that has a high of 51 degrees and a low of 41 degrees. But then the rain is going to come back and we are going to see a high of 58 degrees and a low of 50 that is going to taper off again on Tuesday to a nice cool 38 degrees. That's all I have for you guys today. Back to you, Lily.
The National Basketball Association trade deadline ended today at 3. We'll give you an update on all of the major trades from around the league.
And later in the newscast, we'll show you how a boy's idea and some parental guidance helped bring joy to the community. City Planner Tom Roberts is proposing a new sign ordinance to the Planning Commission this week. The new code would make many signs obtainable without a permit. This permit exemption would save business owners $30 per sign. Roberts says this code is meant to help the city work with businesses that come into the city.
I think we do have a good opportunity to say, come here, be yourself, do your thing.
The proposed sign code is set to be presented at a public hearing in March.
So I loved watching the Super Bowl this weekend. I loved that the Chiefs won, but I think I'm ready to watch some basketball.
Me too. I heard there was a lot of movement in the NBA this week. Catherine, do you have anything for us on that?
That's right, Felicity. The NBA trade deadline was today at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Major moves included Andre Iguodala from the Memphis Grizzlies to the Miami Heat. He is expected to help the Heat make a run at the Eastern Conference Championship. Other notable moves include D'Angelo Russell being traded to the Minnesota Timberwolves, Andre Drummond to the Cleveland Cavaliers, and Marcus Morris moving to the LA Clippers. Yesterday was also National Signing Day. Clemson University, the University of Alabama, and the University of Georgia came in with the top recruitment classes. Virginia Military Institute brought in 9 football recruits, including Austin Doyle, a Rockbridge County High School offensive lineman. The W&L men's basketball team is on a 7-game winning streak. They had a big win last night, 77-72 over Shenandoah. They will take on Roanoke next Wednesday. Also on a winning streak is the women's basketball team with 10 wins in a row. They beat Hollins yesterday, 77-51. They will face Randolph-Macon on Saturday and attempt to keep their streak going. The men and women's swimming teams will compete in the 2020 ODAC Championship starting tonight at 6 p.m. in Greensboro, North Carolina. The W&L wrestling team tied the program wins record last week in a 48-2 victory over Southern Virginia University. This Saturday, the team will travel to Westminster, Maryland to take on Johns Hopkins, the Merchant Marine Academy, and Ursinus in a conference meet. That's it for sports. Lily and Felicity, back to y'all.
Thank you so much, Catherine. A 6-year-old boy in California had an idea to bring more happiness to people. And thanks to his parents, that idea has become a reality. Kay Racine reports on a simple idea to bring joy to the world.
Get to write a note, and then you get to put it in here. Then we get the keys, put it in, unlock it, and take it out, and then the wish comes true.
This kind of unbridled passion can only come from one of the most visionary and youngest philanthropists we've ever met.
It's called the Joy Box.
This is 6-year-old Levi Navarra, who believes that finding happiness is as easy as visiting this box.
So much negativity and divisiveness in our world, and then this kid comes along and is like, let's spread some joy.
The boy's parents, Dan and Amy, say the whole idea started last summer when Levi said he wants to spread joy.
So we decided to take all the people to Disneyland.
Quickly, Levi realized a road trip with the entire city of Turlock may not work out.
Poof, it didn't happen.
Then another thought.
Pancake party, that was fun, so we came up with this idea.
Months later, after a trip to Home Depot, a bit of elbow grease, and careful placement in front of the Navarra home, came this box of joy.
So if you have a wish, you can just put one in here.
The Navarras say, so far, they found some donations and wishes as small as toys and as big as a house.
But we're hoping that as momentum and time builds up that we can
do as much as that we possibly can.
As the happiness continues to stuff the box, Levi's parents are in awe of what this young man continues to teach.
It's amazing when you have kids what they actually end up teaching you. And I always tell people I want to be like Levi when I grow up.
That generosity and kindness and joy would be like markers of my kid. And I think that would make him a really, really fantastic addition to humanity.
Bye.
Kay Receipt, Fox 40 News.
That's all for the Rockbridge Report. Thanks for watching.
You can stay up to date on local news by logging on to rockbridgereport.wlu.edu.